It is with great joy that Faith Chronicles now presents its brand new audio podcast format, the Deep Dive Faith Chronicles. From now on, we will bring you in-depth, research-based, and spiritually enriching conversations on the most relevant topics for our Catholic faith. If you are looking for a richer understanding of the history of the saints, Catholic doctrine, and solid spiritual guidance, this format is for you. Every episode is the result of extensive and detailed research. If you want the full material that originated this and all other episodes, simply access the link below in the description or in the first pinned comment. We invite you to join this deep dive and subscribe to the channel to receive new episodes first. Your participation is key. Send us your questions or suggest new topics in the comments below. Let's deepen our faith together.
Deep Dive Faith Chronicles.
Welcome everyone to Deep Dive Faith Chronicles. Thomas, today we are discussing a topic that is deeply consoling but also widely misunderstood: the alleged revelations of Maria Simma on Purgatory.
It really is. And it's, I think, a vital deep dive for anyone looking to seriously understand the last things. Our mission here really is to act as a faithful guide. We want to walk you through the research document, making sure we stay theologically rigorous so you can grasp the orthodox framework for these kinds of private revelations.
And it's not just about theology, is it? We have to get to the practical side. What does this mean for us, for the living? How does Maria Simma's story push us toward, greater holiness and a real apostolate for the dead?
Exactly. Because this is all about Maria Simma, who was on the surface a very simple Austrian laywoman. But starting around 1940, she began having these incredibly detailed visitations from the holy souls, which led to this profound and frankly very surprising teaching on purgatory.
Okay, let's dive in. So with any kind of private revelation, the church always tells us to start with the person.
Right.
You have to understand who Maria Simma was to even begin to discern the message.
That's the first step, always. And her story starts in 1915 in a tiny village called Sonntag, way up in the Austrian Alps.
Of a very simple background.
Oh, incredibly simple. She was one of 8 children, born to poor peasant farmers. Her whole life was, hand to mouth. It was a life of necessity, of hard work.
And that humility, that simplicity is foundational.
It's absolutely foundational. It immediately sets a scene that is not about worldly ambition or seeking the spotlight. The church sees that as a very positive sign. What's more, her spiritual formation from day one was just impeccable.
You're talking about her mother's influence, which the research says created this fertile ground for what was to come.
Yes. Her mother specifically taught her from a very young age to pray constantly for the poor souls in purgatory. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just a side devotion. It was woven into the fabric of their daily prayers.
So when these visitations began, it wasn't coming out of nowhere. She was already living this apostolate.
Precisely. It was a spectacular continuation of a piety that was already there. It wasn't some random spiritual event. It was, you could say, the culmination of a lifetime of quiet prayer for the dead.
That makes a lot of sense. God prepares the instrument. But the part of her story I find so fascinating and theologically so important is what the research document calls her failures.
Yes. This is where we see God's logic completely upending our human expectations. From the time she was just 7 years old, Maria felt a very strong, persistent call to become a nun.
And she tried multiple times.
3 separate times she tried to enter a convent. She was absolutely determined.
But she was rejected every single time. Why? What was the issue?
Her physical health. She was always considered too weak and sickly. She'd had pleurisy and pneumonia as a child, and it had done some lasting damage. So just imagine that. The one thing she felt called to, pursued 3 times, and the door was shut each time because of her physical frailty.
In the eyes of the world, that's just a string of failures. A sad story.
In the eyes of the world, yes. But theologically, this is what we call the via negativa, the negative way. God wasn't just letting her fail. He was actively guiding her, forcing her into a vocation she hadn't chosen for herself.
Which was to be an unmarried layperson, just living a normal life in the world.
Exactly. Instead of a convent, her apostolate was to be a domestic one. a quiet life of housework and sewing in her family home. That failure to become a nun was the very thing that made her available for this unique, solitary, mystical mission.
It's a powerful lesson in the universal call to holiness. You don't need to be a priest or a nun for God to do something extraordinary through you.
That's it, exactly. He took her deepest desire and transformed it, showing that sometimes the path we fight against is the very one he designed for us.
And this all sets the stage for 1940. She's 25, and this strange man just appears in her bedroom.
Right, pacing back and forth. And her reaction is so telling. She's not frozen in fear.
No, she's bold. She just tells him to leave.
That's the key. Yeah. And when she tries to grab him, her hand goes right through him, just grasping thin air. So now she knows something supernatural. But what she does next, the very next morning, is what the research calls the hermeneutical key to her entire ministry.
She doesn't tell her friends. She doesn't try to make it happen again. She goes straight to her spiritual director.
Immediate obedience to church authority. That is the gold standard the church looks for. She wasn't seeking a thrill. She was seeking discernment. And her spiritual director, he was wise. He gave her a tool.
He told her, if he comes back, ask him, what do you want from me?
Yes. And the soul did come back. She asked the question, just as she was told, and the answer founded her entire mission.
Have 3 masses celebrated for me, and I will be delivered.
And there it was, confirmation. This was a soul from Purgatory asking for help.
Yeah.
At that point, her director gave her the formal mandate.
The green light, basically.
He placed the whole charism under his authority and told her never to turn away the poor souls, but to accept whatever they should ask of her. So from that moment on, her entire ministry was lived under strict obedience.
Okay, this brings us to what is probably the biggest hurdle for most people hearing this story. How is this any different from a seance? From trying to conjure up the dead, which the church completely forbids.
This is the most important distinction we have to make. And the Catechism in paragraph 2116 is it's crystal clear. It condemns all forms of divination, recourse to mediums, conjuring up the dead. It's forbidden.
Because that's necromancy. It's initiated by us, by humans, looking for power or forbidden knowledge.
Exactly. It's man-initiated. But Maria Simma's case is what we call the divine initiative model. She said it herself over and over again. She never once called upon them. She never channeled them. She didn't do anything to make it happen.
So the door was opened from the other side. By God.
That is the absolute key. The holy souls came to her, and only, and this is crucial, only by God's express permission. Think about the purpose. In Spiritism, the human wants something for themselves. Here, the purpose is pure mercy. The souls come for one reason.
To ask for prayers, for masses, for help getting to heaven.
It's entirely focused on salvation. And they didn't come to gossip or satisfy curiosity. The few times she tried to ask about, earthly things, they either ignore the question or just vanish.
So there were clear boundaries on the communication.
Very clear. And what's really fascinating is that the messages themselves condemn the very thing critics accuse her of.
What do you mean?
The souls reportedly warned her that if people on earth try to call forth the dead, any spirit that answers is always Satan and his angels in disguise.
Wow. So the revelation itself contains a warning against necromancy.
Right. That kind of internal consistency, that alignment with church teaching makes a very strong case for its orthodoxy.
And the visitations themselves, they weren't always some dramatic, ghostly apparition, were they?
No, not at all. That's a common misconception about mysticism. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it was just a spiritual presence. She would just know a soul was there. Other times it was an interlocution.
So not a voice she heard with her ears?
Correct. It was a message communicated directly to our mind, her intellect, a clear interior thought. And then, yes, sometimes there were full sensory visions, but the common thread was always the same. She described it as peaceful but urgent.
And this didn't start all at once. It grew over time.
Yes, and that's another important detail. For the first 14 years, from 1940 to 1954, it was just a few cases a year. Then after 1954, it became a regular thing, night and day. That slow build suggests a long period of God forming her, testing her before the mission was fully unleashed.
Right, so we've established the person, her obedience, and the critical difference between her charism and forbidden practices. Let's get into the core of the message itself. Because what the souls told her really turns our popular ideas about purgatory upside down.
It absolutely does. I think for most of us, purgatory is this, scary, almost vindictive waiting room, a kind of junior hell where God punishes you for a while.
Right, a place of punishment.
But the Simma revelations insist that's not it at all. They describe it as a place of great mercy, even more, a gift of God's love.
That lines up so well with what we see from other mystics like St. Faustina and the message of divine mercy. It's about mercy, not vengeance.
It is. And the key to understanding that is to redefine the fire of purgatory. That's the word that scares everyone.
We all picture literal flames.
Of course. But the messages are very specific, and they echo the theology of St. Catherine of Genoa perfectly. The fire is not a physical external flame. It is an inner burning, a spiritual fervor for the love of God.
So the pain doesn't come from God zapping you with fire. It comes from inside the soul itself.
Precisely. At the moment of your particular judgment, the soul sees God in all his infinite perfection, his beauty, his love. And at that same instant, the soul sees itself with perfect clarity, all of its stains, its attachments, its unrepented venial sins.
And the contrast, the shame of that impurity in the face of perfect love must be agonizing.
Unbearable. And because the soul loves God and cannot stand to meet him in that state, the soul of its own will hurls itself into purgatory. It chooses purification. The pain is that burning desire, that intense longing for God, whom it has seen but cannot yet embrace.
Pope Benedict XVI has talked about this. He called it the pain of love that transforms us. It's a suffering born of love for the sake of love.
And that's why it's a place of hope. This is so important. The suffering is intense, but the souls are in a state of joyful suffering.
Joyful suffering. That sounds like a contradiction.
It does, but it's not. They have the absolute unshakable certainty that they are saved. There's zero despair. Their only agony is a time they have to wait to be united with God. Maria Simma compared it to someone in a hospital enduring a painful recovery, but filled with joy at the thought of being perfectly healthy soon.
So the end is guaranteed and glorious.
Absolutely. The messages also confirm that purgatory isn't a one-size-fits-all experience. There are different levels or degrees of suffering.
Tailored to each soul.
Exactly. A unique purification that corresponds to the specific sins and attachments that need to be cleansed. And there's a serious warning in there, too.
For who specifically?
For those who have received more graces. The soul said that priests, religious, or even lay people who had access to the sacraments, to deep spiritual teaching, and were lukewarm or unfaithful, their purgatory is often longer and far more painful.
To whom much is given, much will be required.
It's a direct application of that gospel verse. It's a call to take our spiritual lives, our vows, our access to grace with the utmost seriousness.
That's a sobering thought, and it leads right into what I think is the most practical and maybe the most shocking part of the whole revelation. The hierarchy of sin. What the soul said actually sends you to purgatory for the longest time.
This is where it gets very personal for all of us, because most of us, we focus on avoiding the big mortal sins, and that's essential, of course.
But that's not what the souls were most concerned about.
Not for the length of purification, no. The number one cause, the thing that required the most painful and longest purification, was consistently identified as sins against charity.
Sins against love.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the list is, it's a direct challenge to our modern lives. It's hardness of heart, hostility, slandering, calumny. It's criticism. It's our refusals to make peace, our refusals to forgive, and all the bitterness we store inside.
Wow. That's everyday life for a lot of people, especially online. The constant criticism, the gossip, the harsh judgments. We think of it as just venting. And
the souls are saying it is spiritual poison. These actions, these words, these inner attitudes directly wound love itself. And they require a long, painful healing. It brings that verse from Matthew to life, that we'll have to give an account for every careless word, that careless tweet, that bitter grudge against a family member. It all has to be purified.
It totally shifts the focus of an examination of conscience. It's not just what bad things did I do, but where did I fail to love?
That's the heart of it. The fire of purgatory is the burning away of all the unlove we cultivated in our lives. And the second great theme that came up again and again was related to that.
Sins of omission.
The good we failed to do. The souls lamented this constantly, neglecting prayer, ignoring someone in need, withholding a word of encouragement, just a general lukewarmness and failure to act when love called us to.
It's not just the evil we commit, but the good we withhold.
Exactly. And also our worldly attachments. The souls talked a lot about being chained by our possessions, our ambitions, our focus on material things to the exclusion of God. All of that has to be stripped away.
There was one specific story in the research that really struck me because it seems so minor, but it says so much. The boy who stole blessed wax.
Yes, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
A soul of a young boy came to her, and he was in purgatory for, of all things, stealing blessed wax from cemetery candles.
As a prank. To us, that sounds like, what, a childish prank? Almost nothing.
And that is why it is so instructive. It shows us that offenses against holy things, things that are blessed and set apart for God, are taken with absolute seriousness. It's not about the monetary value of the wax. It's about the irreverence shown to something sacred. It's a powerful call to have a profound reverence for all things related to our faith.
Okay, so with claims this specific and this dramatic, we have to talk about the church's official position. What has the church said formally about Maria Simma?
We need to be very precise here. The church has not made a formal pronouncement on the supernatural origin of these visitations. That means there's no official decree saying, yes, this is definitely from God. It remains a private revelation.
Which means Catholics are not required to believe it.
Correct. No Catholic is ever obligated to believe in any private revelation, even one that's fully approved, like Fatima or Lourdes.
But her book, the famous one, Get Us Out of Here, has an imprimatur, and that's where a lot of people get confused. They see that stamp and think it means the church has approved the visions.
That is a very common and very critical misunderstanding. The imprimatur, which means let it be printed, and the nihil obstat, nothing stands in the way, are not a validation of the mystical experience.
So what are they then? What is the church certifying with that stamp?
The church is certifying that the content of the book is free from any doctrinal or moral error. It's a guarantee that the theology described, the nature of purgatory, the power of the Mass, the importance of charity, is completely in line with Catholic teaching.
So it's a seal of approval on the message, not the messenger.
A perfect way to put it. It's the church saying, you can read this and it will not harm your faith. The ideas in here are theologically sound. It's a permission slip, not a pronouncement of supernaturality.
But it does seem like her local bishop and her priests were very supportive, even without a formal decree.
Oh, absolutely. They encouraged her ministry. The mandate was basically, you can share these messages as long as there are no theological errors. And since there weren't, the church, in a sense, allowed this private voice to fill what the research calls a catechetical void.
A teaching gap.
Exactly. For decades, the last things, death, judgment, heaven, hell, purgatory, have been, well, scarcely taught. There's a lot of confusion. The church saw that Maria Simma's message, which was so profoundly orthodox, was a powerful tool to recatechize the faithful on these essential truths.
And when you look at the message, it lines up perfectly with the Catechism, with Pope Benedict, with centuries of tradition.
The theology is rock solid.
Yeah.
The only thing new about it is the incredible urgency and the personal testimony, allegedly from the souls themselves.
Which brings us to the final and most important part, the practical mission. What is the takeaway for you, the listener? This isn't just a fascinating story, it's a call to action.
It's meant to completely transform our approach to death and grief. It moves us from being passive mourners to active, powerful apostles for the deceased. It reminds us that our connection to our loved ones doesn't end at the grave. We can still help them.
And the Souls gave a very clear 4-part program for how to help, ranked by what is most powerful. Let's start with number 1. What is by far the most effective thing we can do?
The holy sacrifice of the Mass. Without any question, The soul said it is infinitely powerful and that nothing can take its place. Remember, the very first soul that came to her asked for masses. That's the foundation of it all.
Why is the Mass so much more powerful than, say, a personal prayer?
Because our prayers and sacrifices, while good and valuable, are finite human acts. The Mass is not a human act. It is the act of Christ himself. It's the representation of his one perfect sacrifice on the cross. A single Mass has infinite value, and we can offer that infinite merit for a soul in purgatory.
Okay, so Mass is number one. What's the second most powerful aid?
Atoning suffering. This means offering up our own sufferings united to the cross for the holy souls, and this includes both voluntary and involuntary suffering.
Voluntary would be things like fasting or penance.
Right, but just as powerful, maybe more so, is offering up the involuntary sufferings, an illness, chronic pain, the grief of losing someone, all the daily frustrations and annoyances. When you accept those patiently and offer them for the souls, they become an incredibly powerful prayer of reparation.
That's a game changer. It gives meaning to every little struggle. After Mass and suffering, what's third?
The Rosary. The souls described it as being like a golden chain that pulls them toward heaven. The combination of meditating on the life of Christ and the powerful intercession of his mother is immense.
And finally, the fourth pillar.
Devotions and charity. Things like praying the Stations of the Cross, which they said brings great relief, gaining and applying indulgences, which are specifically designed to remit the temporal punishment of sin, and almsgiving, giving to the poor on behalf of the dead.
This whole system is a beautiful illustration of the communion of saints. They can't help themselves, so they rely on us.
They are completely dependent on us, the church on earth. Their time for earning merit is over. But, and this is the hopeful part, it is a two-way street. They can, and they do, pray for us.
So we help them, they help us.
It's a beautiful exchange of love. The Catechism confirms this. Our prayers for them help them, and in return, their intercession for us becomes more effective. The closer we help them get to heaven, the more powerfully they can pray for our needs here on earth.
Which brings us back to the ultimate point of all this. The highest value isn't just helping the dead, but the sanctification of the living.
If this was only about being scared of purgatory, the church wouldn't allow it. The messages are meant to be a mirror for our own souls. They force us to conduct a deep and honest examination of our conscience now, while we still have time to change.
They force us to ask those hard questions. Am I holding on to a grudge? Am I a source of criticism and negativity? What good did I fail to do today because I was too lazy or too selfish?
And by actively working for the liberation of the dead, by praying the Mass, by offering our sufferings, by forgiving others, we are actively purifying our own souls of the very things that lead to a long purgatory. It's the ultimate act of charity, where in saving others, we save ourselves.
So, to wrap up this deep dive, purgatory, as presented here, is not a place of vengeance, but a gift of God's merciful, purifying love. The key to a short purification is a life of charity, avoiding gossip, slander, and especially unforgiveness. And the single greatest weapon we have to help the holy souls is the infinite power of the holy sacrifice of the Mass.
A powerful and practical message of hope. If you value this faithful, in-depth research, please subscribe to our channel, Faith Chronicles, on YouTube. And to get the full research document used for this episode, check the link in the description. God bless.